Welcome back to Wake Up Radio with Ryan Rain Fuzz. We've got Angela Shelton joining us live in the studio. We just watched a clip, the trailer for your documentary, Searching for Angela Shelton. It's not exactly the comedic...
The feel-good movie of the summer.
What do you mean? It's a great date movie.
I mean, when you sit here in the studio, your character and your personality are bubbly and upbeat, and
Yeah.
this is a much different part of your past.
I know, and it'll never leave me. Because what happens is people discover it. Because that movie, actually, when you see it, it's really timeless.
Yeah.
And it's used in so many rape crisis centers and domestic violence shelters that new people will discover it on Facebook, and they'll come to me as if I just made it.
Wow.
And I'm like, wait, Dad.
You're
who?
like, this isn't
I'm
even
over that.
HD.
I'm
This was 1999.
Exactly. I'm now, I'm bound for Saturday Night Live, people. Come on.
Well, and it's interesting because I had seen your Oprah segment, but had totally forgot about it and didn't realize that it had been that long ago. And I think what's interesting is, like you say, people discover this, and it's kind of like when people discovered, the video The Secret. It speaks
Right.
to them. It gives them a vocabulary. It gives them a face. It speaks to them in such a way that it helps them put their own stuff in perspective. So, you were
true.
on break.
Thanks.
You were teasing about, hey, I'm also the air guitar champion, but
But you don't have a video of that on YouTube, do you?
Sure I do. Come on.
Well,
But I was excited to come here because you mentioned the spiritual aspect of it.
yeah.
Because it's really
yeah.
a spiritual movie, and that's what I like to talk about, which is it gets a little funky depending on who you're talking to.
sure,
Yeah.
You
sure.
could either get shot or, thrown up on a pedestal.
Well, I feel like we go through the same thing here on the show. We always kind of, validate or kind of preface certain things that we're saying, because some of the stuff that we talk about is very esoteric. We realize you have to have a moment of faith, or you have to believe in something bigger than yourself. And what I think is most powerful about having you here in your story is that, wow, how easy it is for people to become victims and have just called it quits.
Oh, yeah.
And you spoke some about victims and the victim mentality when we talked earlier.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about what are your thoughts about victims? You had said that some people
God
don't want to...
bless them. Yeah, I think that after being on the road with this, I was kind of an outsider in the trauma and recovery movement, and then have since become an expert in trauma and recovery. And I've seen that victimhood is an addiction, and people can be addicted to being a victim, and you can't help them. They have to help themselves. Like
Right.
believe me, I've tried, and I'm super like, I'll save everybody, and I've learned I got to put the superhero cape down, and I call it the trauma train. Like, you can get on the trauma train, and and all these like nonprofits and these groups are pounding and working so hard and giving up their lives, and I'm like, you know what? After watching this for the past so many years, it's like pounding on the big toe of a huge beast. At best, you're being irritating. I think on a spiritual aspect, it's time for everybody to back up, really heal, and metaphorically grow your wings, spiritually speaking, and then on a united front, we can blow the beast down.
And I feel, Angela, that you've actually achieved that to some degree. I'm sure that that's with the trauma like what you've gone through. It's not something that you overcome overnight, clearly. But I get the sense that you have, to some degree, mostly overcome that, and you're ready to move on.
Oh yeah, and I was years ago actually, but I got caught in, I gotta say honestly, survivor guilt. Like, I don't even think about my past anymore. It doesn't come up. When usually, like, you could mention my dad, like you could say, my dad, and we have a special guest right outside this door. It's your dad. And before, I would have probably had a panic attack and thrown up.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, cool, awesome.
You confronted that. This
Yeah, I'm just
documentary
like,
was your healing.
Yes, actually traveling on the road, meeting survivors was my healing, honestly, and my spiritual experiences that I had. But now it's like I'm not affected by it anymore.
Good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And actually I got to the place where I really love my dad.
Yeah.
And I forgive on a level that I do not permit, and I don't condone the behavior.
Right.
And the forgiveness was actually more about myself.
Good.
Because I actually really learned through other people when I was sharing the film that I actually really had a lot of hatred for myself. And like, if you were to pick every boyfriend and put them in a room, you're like, wow, that's not a good choice.
Well, but that's a common theme, right? With
Oh, yeah.
with survivors of abuse.
Oh yeah.
Angela, I know that you had some tough times along the road. You had talked about the moment when you were down to your last $50 making the documentary. A lot of people believe in signs, and I don't know if you have anything to say about signs. Was it a sign? Was it a sign that it was time to stop? A sign that you were doing something wrong?
Oh, I think I think it's all the signs of your keep going. When you keep getting the hints to keep going. But there's two different ways to see signs though, because some people can get addicted to it. Like, you know, my mom is like, well, his name is Irving and I was born in Irwin.
Oh, right.
So I'm gonna date him. You know what I mean? Like what? Like you can create. I love you, mother. Like, so you can create a lot of signs.
Yeah.
But I think when you're doing something really great for the greater good, like when you're really following the intuition and following the spirit guidance, like I learned because I was forced to do it. Like I have this battle with spirit going on all the time. I'm such a rebel. But when it keeps coming up, that's when I think it's a sign.
Yeah.
When what keeps coming up?
When it keeps coming up, like, oh my God, I gotta quit, and I'm just gonna quit everything. And you get a phone call. You just got $10,000.
When these random things take place.
Exactly. And also, I think when the crazy zombies show up.
What does that mean?
When like you're doing something great, that when the people come up out of nowhere to also knock you off. I think that's also a sign that you're doing something good.
Because you're intended to keep going, keep pushing, and make it worthwhile.
Because I don't think it's necessarily easy. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Although I believe life is easy, and I believe you can make it easy.
Yeah.
Like just even recently, going through some like really hard stuff in my life, and even I mean, I'll use my childhood for example. Like one time, our house burned down. And it's like, I've seen it, you know? And it's like, you can either, go kill yourself, or like, well, I really wanted to paint. You know what I mean?
And make the best of it.
Like,
Angela, you're an inspiration to women all over the world. We are so excited to have had you on the show this morning to share your story. Thank you for joining us, and best of luck, continued success.
in comedy?
Yes, the next movie I expect to be like,
It's
you know,
funny.
some balloons and stuff going on.
Balloons.
Thank you for joining us this
Awesome.
morning, Angela.
Thank you.
And we'll be back in just a moment with a wrap-up of Angela's story. Stay with us.